You're tuning into a special episode of Drive with NAR Mike Takeover here in Boston at NAR Next. I'm James Dwiggins, also known as Dwiggy Dwiggins.
Yes.
The host of the Real Estate Insiders podcast, along with my partner in crime, Mr. Keith Robinson, Mr. Crazy Uncle Keith, I like to call you.
Yes, sir.
We had a really special guest on today. We had Leo Pareja, the CEO of eXp Realty. He's one of my favorite people. Tell everybody about what he brought to the show today.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you have Leo, you basically just turn the microphone on and let
That
it
is
rip,
a true statement.
Right?
Yep.
He shared how his company thought about and approached and made some changes with regards to the settlement and what they did with that.
Your legal liability.
That's right.
Move.
That's right.
Yep.
He talked about the MLS and the importance of MLS and really had like tactile, experiential advice about some of the differences between the way that it's done in other parts of the world and the way it's done here.
Which is basically everything's different other than here.
Correct.
They even have an MLS in other parts of the world.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I also really loved his thought process about what he's really thinking about from a leadership standpoint for 2020.
Empathy.
Yeah.
Empathy is a good one.
You are going to dig it. Put it in your ears, kids.
Leo, welcome to the podcast. We are super excited to have you in the room. You are a popular guy running around doing presentations. How was that, by the way? Was it a lot of fun?
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. You weren't doing anything controversial as usual.
Most likely.
We've heard a little bit of some noise. People enjoyed what you had to say for sure.
Well, I think when you're your authentic self, that comes across.
It does.
Yeah,
It absolutely does.
Well, hey, so, I know you only have a certain amount of time and you got to board a flight. We appreciate you giving us a little bit of that time that you got. You've been at the forefront of so much of communicating with people about the changes that are happening in the industry. So I wanted to start with just give us a little bit of perspective on some of the things that you've implemented in your organization to help limit further potential liability down the road. I mean, you run a very big company, so I think it's good for people to hear this from you.
No, and that's actually where it came from, right? So we operate in 50 states. We close roughly 45,000 homes a month, right? So when we saw the settlement and we saw what I would say, non-very clear instructions on how to do it, we said we, as eXp, were no longer going to participate to broker commission sharing, which I got a lot of flack for because there was a comma. And the next part of that sentence was, we're going to completely still participate with working with buyer's agents.
Right.
We're just choosing to do it through seller to broker compensation because I think one of the parts that people overlook is that the settlement says that the agent's not allowed to receive more than the buyer representation agreement states.
Right.
And we're giving sellers the education and the tool set to make the decision as to which way to move forward. Right. Which is, would you like to offer compensation, which they can with our company? But instead of broker to broker, it's seller to broker. So we're training our agents to negotiate the fee for the service they're willing to render on the listing side, educate the seller that they have multiple choices going forward. They can offer compensation off the MLS just like the other companies do it, or how we did it previous to August 17th. They can say, we're open to negotiations. Put it in the offer.
Right.
Or they could say no comment. But one of the things I stress to agents to say, hey, have you ever sold a house for less than list?
Yeah.
Or above list?
Right.
Have you ever asked for anything that wasn't advertised, i.e. a pool table?
Sure.
A hot tub?
Yeah.
Some personal property that's not a
Part
fixture.
of the contract.
Right?
Yep.
Ask for something that was not advertised. Rent back.
Yeah.
Right? A long closing time. And what does a good listing agent say to any one of those questions?
Put it in the offer. Put it in the offer. Yeah.
You don't verbally negotiate.
Right.
Statutes of frauds prevent us from doing that.
Yeah.
You put it in the contract to make meeting of the minds between buyer and seller.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, that it wasn't that controversial.
Right.
Even though it was for a couple of weeks until other folks came out.
How many times did you have to charge your phone a day for those first couple of weeks?
No, it was a lot of conversations with our agents. And again, I think that was the work. I was actually on the phone with some of our top producing agents, explaining the position. Look, yes, it was not that fun, but it was a really interesting moment because it made everybody pause and say, wait, what did he say?
Right.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
Right. And once you walked them through it, they go, oh, this is actually easier to explain to a consumer.
Right.
Right. Like that's anecdotally one of the interesting things that you made up. Agents are saying, hey, the sellers actually understand this easier.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we're saying, hey, what would you like to do?
Right.
It's completely up to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And again, one of the parts of the settlement that people tend to forget is You're not allowed to earn more than what's in your agreement.
Right.
So why are you giving away more than you should?
Yeah.
Your fiduciary responsibility is for the seller to net the most amount of money, the shortest amount of time with the least amount of friction.
Right.
And that's the part that I keep saying to everybody. What did not change after August 17th is the seller needs to net the most amount of money, the shortest amount of time with the least amount of friction.
Yeah.
And the buyer has X amount of limited dollars to bring to the closing table.
Right.
For a payment they can afford.
Yeah.
And by choosing to accept that buyer's complete offer,
Right.
the seller has the right to not choose that offer. Sure.
Yeah.
Right. No different than a house is advertised for 500,000 and you lowball them at 450. The seller is not obliged to take your offer.
Correct.
Right. This is no different.
Right.
And so I think there was just a lot of confusion because people went to a blank slate in their mind
Right.
of like, what's the possibility? I'm like, we don't have to start at zero.
Right.
I've always just been saying, look at the seller side. Whatever we've experienced on the seller side is now what we're going to experience on the buy side.
Right.
What do I mean by that? 5 to 10% of the buyers are going to choose to be unrepresented, just like sellers do that are for sale by hand.
Right.
Right. And for simplicity, I call them FSBO buyers because agents can really get their head around that.
Yeah.
Versus if I call them unrepresented, all these emotions about representation.
Right.
Play.
Right.
So these percentage of the consumer population are going to say, I actually read CNN and I don't have to pay anybody.
Right.
I'm not signing anything for anybody.
Sure.
And that's your right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So going through the open house and then choose to be unrepresented and present your offer.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's going to be a portion of the population that's going to elect that. And my guess is it's going to be very similar to for sale by owners.
Do you think it'll be the same percentage or lower? My intuition is I agree with the assertion, but just for fun on a podcast, let's debate. Right.
The guess is equal to or better than.
You think it'll be more? I think it'll be less. A lower percentage of buyers will do it unrepresented than sellers.
We're saying the same thing.
Okay, we are. Okay. Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because statistically speaking, it's about 30 hours to represent a seller.
Right.
And 87 hours to represent a buyer.
Well, and it is just, there's a property when you're a seller. There are multiple properties when you're a buyer.
What I've said to people is like, I've done this before. So try scheduling 14 showings in a low inventory environment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Like
good luck.
Without the technology, the licensing, the lock boxes, it's not even about good luck. It's just the sheer portion of homes that are open at a given time.
Right.
An open house mechanism.
Correct.
And the new buyer and seller survey they just did, that FSBO is down now to 6%. Last year was 7%. It's actually coming down.
Right.
More.
Right.
It's the lowest level, I think, Keith, you said, that they've ever recorded at this point.
I'll just say in a long time,
Fine.
so we have an edge.
Yeah. But I mean, the point was even in 2023 it was 7, now it's down to 6. So, there's this representation is very important, I think, is the part that we're emphasizing.
Look, people forget. I've said this before and I'll say it on the record right now. If we could have been removed the last 10 years, the $50 billion worth of capital that tried,
it would have
done it.
Yeah.
If we could have been commoditized and disenfranchised from the process, it would have happened.
Right.
We've seen companies that raise billions of dollars all either go out of business or pivot to working with agents. I saw a couple of them walking over here.
Yeah, more than one.
Yeah.
Right? Who now have said, hey, we need to partner with the agent for the last mile.
Right. Yeah.
Because the last mile is the emotional one. It's the heavy lifting. There are 3,500 plus municipalities where we record deeds of trust in this country. Title insurance, mortgages. Like, it is not a simple process. It is a complex process.
Yeah. And as a species, we've spent more time around a campfire than we have around computer screens. Right. And so when we do big decisions in our life, which buying or selling your home is, you lean on another human. You don't only lean on data. You don't only lean on technology.
And I don't like saying quotes when I can't remember where I heard it, but recently,
well, you can say I said it.
Recently, I heard Keith say,
yeah, perfect,
that Gen Z has been surveyed, the generation that's least likely to have the in-person interactions.
Yeah.
Over index wanting a realtor.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Keith, right?
Yeah.
And again, what I guess from that is maybe because they're probably not as used to having interpersonal relationships when something this
big,
expensive, complicated comes to mind. They probably have a higher affinity.
Well, it's harder for them to even get the cash to save up to do it. So they're looking at it from, they're already struggling. They've been at home. I've got to figure out how to do this. I want some expert guidance. Let's shift this real quick just for time's sake, Keith. I know you wanted to talk to him about the MLS just here in other countries.
You're in 24 plus other countries. You even have had a personal experience with trying to sell a property or help a family member sell a property in a different environment than the MLS environment that we have here. Just unpack for us maybe that story or MLS, the value of it. Yeah.
I've been quite opinionated lately.
Yeah. Let her rip.
So this is extra kind of top of mind because I operate in 24 countries.
Right.
So 22 outside of North America, because the Canadian and the U.S. system is
very similar. Yeah.
And like I've now got it down to a sentence I just said on the stage. We have the most complete, most liquid, most accurate data set that exists on the planet. And I think in this part of the world, we actually take it for granted.
Right.
Like the fact that we agree on what a bedroom is
a big deal.
Is a big deal.
Right.
It's a room, it's a door, it's a closet, it's a window with egress that a full-grown adult can go out of that's actually 60 feet. And the windowsill can't be more than 44 inches off the ground.
Specifically, like measured to the inch.
Because if not, it's not a bedroom, it's a den.
That's right.
Right, and we actually take that for granted. Right, like definition of active is that you can actually show it within reasonable time frame. Right, if you list a tenant-occupant property and said no showings, your competitors can actually flag it and have it taken down.
Right.
Because it does not carry reasonable access.
Yes.
Like all these things are actually called business rules on top of the database. I've heard other leaders just call, they're just a database. No, they're not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's on average 2,000 business rules that are enforced and regulated for competitors sharing data.
Yeah. Right.
It's actually super
rare,
neat and rare.
Yeah.
Right. And so to say that not having this total set is better is not accurate.
Yeah.
And I think it's disingenuous for personal gain.
What is the, tell us about, but go deep on how does it operate in other countries? Like so
expand
people
that
people don't understand what it looks like outside of here. So give us that.
Depending on the country, the portals rule the world. Agents pay per month that it's active. And the sellers normally come out of pocket real money, $2,500, $5,000, and it's euros or pounds or wherever we're operating for a premium on top of the compensation paid to the agent. And so like we just did an event in the south of France and I had agents from all over continental Europe.
Sounds terrible.
Someone's got to do it.
Yeah. Good way to take the bullets.
Next year at Barcelona.
Can we do a podcast there with you?
Yeah.
June 22nd, Barcelona. You're both
okay.
I'm in.
Someone put that in my calendar.
But I had an agent who sold homes in Newport Beach and relocated to the south of France because that's what she wanted to do. And we could support it on the platform.
Yeah.
And she just wanted to grab me just to tell me how obnoxious it is.
All right.
She said, for me to get prepared to show properties in Nice, I need to go to 8 to 10 different websites to get a total picture of the available inventory.
Yeah.
Right. And in those countries, like half the inventory is non-exclusive.
Right.
So you'll find the same house listed on different websites with different price points.
And probably different information, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Right? Because there is no standardized rule set.
Right.
Like if you violate the rule set of your member subscription in MLS in the US and Canada, listing gets pulled or you don't get to participate anymore.
There's accountability for that.
And the way it works is if you giveth, you can taketh.
Right.
And that's the participation rule of CCP.
Right.
Right. Am I open to changing a couple things? Absolutely. I'm not the lover and defender of the way it's written, but we just need a level playing field to compete.
Yeah.
And this is the part that I want to stress for everybody. A standard way of doing business makes by the way, we're competitors.
Sure.
It makes us compete on level of service and value.
Right.
If all of a sudden I can afford inventory that is only available through me, tell me how that does not create a pay-to-play scheme.
Right.
Or by definition, remove inventory from one group of people that only you can get to see through this group of people.
Yeah.
I think that's a ticking time bomb for fair housing violations.
Yeah. Well, now I've heard most other countries look at our MLS system with a mix of awe and aspiration.
Well, we literally just had a forum in Milan where they're trying to figure out how to create the very system that we have here.
My previous company that I founded was Remine. I actually got called by Japan's government in South Africa and Australia to go help them figure it out.
Right.
And I told them that without organized real estate, where cooperation is enforced by a third party,
right,
it's not actually possible.
But it's very weird that like where the rest of the world is trying to migrate towards our system, there's
A couple people.
couple people trying to.
That's I think the clarification.
So tell us real quick, because I want you to give the real world example. Your mom was selling a house in
my
Belize.
folks left the country after my brother and I moved out of the house. I went to Belize for a couple of years, and it was awesome. Then I had children, and I convinced them to come back.
Yes, you mean the children convinced them to come?
Grandkids convinced them they wanted to be close to us. But it took me 4 or 5 years to sell their house, and I kind of know what I'm doing.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It was like 4 different brokerages.
Yeah.
We had to keep finding them because outside of this centralized data, which by the way keeps the cost of marketing down to a consumer.
Sure.
I had a hope that the consumer put the right word soup into Google.
Right.
Yeah.
And find their crappy WordPress websites. And then they had to call my agent, and I hope that they picked up the phone and then scheduled a call. And by the way, he was like an hour away because there's not that many of them in the country.
Yeah.
It took, once we got to contract, it took like 8 months. And oh, by the way, I paid 10%.
Right. Right.
All right. We don't have a whole lot of time.
Yeah.
We know you got to catch a flight.
Yep.
We want you to give the listeners and viewers, what advice would you give agents going into 2025? Like, tell them.
Education attracts. Education attracts. We are in this interesting, messy middle. And I've said it a couple of different ways. Look, August 17th was not an organic change.
Right.
Right. Most things in business and in life happen somewhat organically through Darwinianism or whatever.
Yeah, this was an external force.
This is an external force who actually doesn't know anything about our industry.
Correct.
Doesn't care.
Yeah.
I still don't understand how this is better for the consumer.
Right.
Right. But it was arbitrary with unequivocal kind of black or white instructions. Because what I've seen play out is different states of different associations are choosing a different interpretation. So the one thing I'm asking everyone is as much grace as possible. And this is not about pontificating and beating your chest and I'm right and you're wrong.
Sure.
This is about helping buyers and sellers navigate the most expensive thing they do in their life. And being that expert guide and having as much empathy for not only the consumers, but the people we work with across the aisle.
Yeah.
Right.
But then also just getting as educated as possible. Because unfortunately, what I will promise you will happen is those associations and states will change their mind 10 more times. Right? Because this is kind of an organic evolution.
Well, yeah, you're learning your way through it.
We're all learning.
Yeah.
Well, that's like anything. Laws are made, laws are changed. We have to learn as we go. I love the empathy part, by the way, because everyone's trying to get through this for their clients first, and being empathetic with the person on the other side, trying to make the deal come together, I think is a great comment about that.
Because at the end of the day, that's our job.
That's your job.
To serve these families. Because the young family who's pregnant, whose this is up in 60 days, doesn't care about our inside baseball work.
Right. They just want
they're like,
want the roof.
Can I get the house?
I want the roof over.
Are you going to represent me?
Yeah.
Well, how do I pay you? Like they have these real questions because the media is being very loud.
Right.
So it's your job to be expertly, versed in it, so you can explain their choices, and get them to their next.
Yeah, lean into the conversation. Don't lean away from it.
Leo, thanks for being here. I know you got to catch a flight.
Yep.
I promise we're going to get you to the airport on time.
Yeah.
Appreciate everything you do for the industry. Keep up the amazing leadership.
Here's what I got from it: south of France, Belize, and see you in Barcelona. So thanks.
Done.
All right. Appreciate it, my friend.
Take care.
Yep. Thank you for joining us at the NAR Next conference in Boston, Massachusetts. We have been doing the Drive with NAR podcast in association with Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. We appreciate all of that. Make sure you subscribe to both podcasts. We got a lot of content coming.